Okay, very good. John, welcome. If you want quickly to test sound, otherwise we launch the event.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Everything is working very well. So I think it's now time, 1 p.m. Geneva time, it's now time to launch this event formally. Excellencies, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who has joined us on WebEx and to who is now watching the video of this celebration of the International Day for Zero Waste. We are all convening today as last December at the initiative of Turkey, joined by 105 other member states. The United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution proclaiming 30 March as International Day of Zero Waste to be observed annually. This is therefore the first of many other celebrations here in Geneva and around the world. As Geneva is a major global hub for the global governance of hazardous substances and home to several international organizations and multilateral environmental agreements aiming at beating waste pollution, we could not seize the opportunity to bring together some key stakeholders involved in different processes and representing different stakeholders to discuss with us how they are moving forward this agenda. Plastic pollution, food loss and waste, natural resource extraction, electronic waste, humanitarian waste, science to end pollution, toxics and human rights, waste pickers' work conditions are indeed some of the topics related to waste that are at the center of discussions and negotiations ongoing in multilateral Geneva, including achieving all the goals and targets in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development related to this topic. Before proceeding with the open statement of this event, let me remind you that throughout the event, you can raise your questions by using the Q&A box. We will use your questions to feed the discussion if time allows after the presentations. You have also the automatic multilingual transcript accessible at the bottom left of your screen. The documents presented, the summary, as well as the video of our session will be made available on the webpage of this event. The link is being shared in the chat. Delphine Babine Pelliard, Senior Liaison Specialist for Food Systems and Environment at the FAO Liaison Office with the United Nations Office here in Geneva, will take over the moderation of this event after the opening statement of this celebration, which will be delivered by His Excellency Ambassador Becek, the permanent representative of Turkey to the United Nations and other international organizations here in Switzerland. And before I give the floor to His Excellency, let's start the celebration by watching the video introducing International Day of Zero Waste that was prepared by our colleagues in Nairobi. Colleagues, over to you.
Every year, the world generates 2.24 billion tons of municipal solid waste. If we were to stack that amount vertically, it would make a pile taller than Mount Everest. Every year, year after year. Without action, by 2050, we will increase our municipal solid waste to 3.88 billion tons annually. A mountain range of waste suffocating our planet. Waste aggravates the climate crisis. Waste aggravates nature and biodiversity loss. Waste aggravates pollution. Waste comes in all forms, including plastic, food, textiles, and chemicals. And waste disproportionately affects the poor. But through better design, clearer economic signals, and proper management of waste, we can create a prosperous circular economy. In Africa alone, recycling and recovering waste would produce $8 billion. We have the technical expertise, the drive to innovate, and the knowledge to find solutions to the waste crisis. Historic negotiations to end plastic pollution are already underway. Moving towards zero waste is another important step in this journey. 30th March is International Day of Zero Waste, an opportunity to achieve sustainable development, protect human health, and combat the triple planetary crisis. Our waste, our responsibility. Together, we can beat waste pollution.
Excellency, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzolio. Let me first thank all the organizers. The event brought together many stakeholders. I would like to thank panelists for their participation as well. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be part of an event that marks the first International Day of Zero Waste. This journey has started in 2017 with the Zero Waste project initiated by our First Lady, Her Excellency Emine Erdoğan. Mr. Kavlak from Türkiye will give you much more details about the project. Therefore, I suffice it to say this project led the way to a UN resolution linking zero waste to the wider agenda of 2030. The level of ownership was encouraging in the UN, 105 co-sponsors, unanimous adoption. The text is a cross-cutting, and we are confident that contribute to the implementation of 2030 agenda, new urban agenda, the Paris Agreement, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the Basel Convention. Today, a UN high-level meeting is being held in New York, in the General Assembly, where our First Lady will address the audience as a keynote speaker. I hope these events such as this will strengthen our efforts and raise higher public awareness. Thank you for the efforts and contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, for your opening remarks, setting the scene on why we are all convening today, and reminding us the important role that Turkey played in this resolution. I wanted also to thank the Geneva Environment Network for inviting FAO Geneva office to moderate this multi-stakeholder event. This topic is indeed also important for us. FAO is a co-lead together with UNEP to measure the progress of the SDG target 12.3 on global food loss and waste. In terms of figures, food loss and waste is responsible for an estimated 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gases emission. Around 40% of the world food continue to be lost in the supply chain after it is harvested. A further 17% ends up wasted in retail and by consumers, particularly in middle and high income regions. And in the meantime, globally, around 800 million people, 1 in 8 human beings, suffer from hunger and malnutrition. These figures show that the loss and waste of food for human consumption directly impacts food security and nutrition and hinders the realization of human right to food. It also leads to unnecessary pressure on the environment and waste of resources that have been used to produce, distribute, or conserve that food. FAO supports members with food loss and waste, including capacity development, with the development of national strategies. And we have also developed tools such as the Voluntary Code of Conduct for Food Loss and Waste Reduction and a guidance document on enabling a legal environment for the prevention and reduction of food loss and waste. In 2019, we dedicated the FAO's flagship report on the state of food and agriculture to this topic. And we also host a food loss and waste database. So I invited you to consult these documents on the FAO website. So thank you again, Diana. And let's now move to our first session on beating waste pollution. And we are lucky to have with us representatives at different levels who share their commitment to the fight against waste pollution. And let me first give the floor to Graham Alabaster, who is the head of the UN Habitat Geneva office, who jointly facilitates with UNEP the observance of this International Day of Zero Waste, and who will also tell us about the commitment of his organization. Graham, you have the floor.
Thank you very much indeed, Delphine, and Excellency, Ambassador, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure for UN Habitat to be the sort of co-host, if you like, of this event here on Zero Waste. The story of waste and management, of course, started very early on in both UNEP and UN Habitat. And even when the SDGs were being discussed SDG 11 for cities and SDG 12 for sustainable consumption and production. There was initially some thoughts about how we would reflect this work, and Habitat and UNEP work very closely in the development of the indicators that we rely on for SDG 11 and 12, and how they really go hand in glove, because of course the SDG for waste management, or if you like waste production, it comes under SDG 11 under the city's goal, whereas for recycling and sustainable consumption production is under 12. So the story's been going on. Habitat for many years has worked on solid waste management, of course, but only latterly did we start to consider more zero waste concepts and recycling. And one of our key initiatives that supports this work is the Waste Wise Cities programme, which was started in 2018 and is designed really to assist member states, particularly municipalities and cities, to quantify the amount of waste they produce, to look at how they can use that data to make decisions, and of course how they might network with other cities around the world to share experience. So, because we know that waste management is a very important topic, we know that a lot of the work towards zero waste means about changing production and consumption patterns. But we also know that for the waste that is discarded, we need much better knowledge on the recycling and reuse. And of course, for the bit that we can't deal with, how we dispose of it sustainably. But there's very good reason, apart from environmental reasons, to also consider solid waste management and waste zero. Because municipal governments spend very large proportions of their budgets on managing waste. And if there are ways we can reduce that budget, of course, that money becomes available for other, more pressing, urgent issues such as health and education and other things. So there really is a good driving force for cities to embrace the concepts of zero waste and to see how they can then kickstart it. There is a lot of hope for us in UN Habitat and UNEP because, of course, waste production happens in cities. And as we look to 2050, when close to 2/3 of the world's population will live in an urban agglomeration of some kind, we really also know that many of those urban areas are yet to be built. In fact, 75% of the urban space that will be occupied in 2050 has yet to be built. So we've got a real good opportunity now to influence the way urbanization goes ahead and to embrace these concepts of zero waste right from the start, when these new urban settings being established. So, I mean, what does this mean in practical terms for local authorities? Again, we've got this marvelous resolutions that were adopted by the General Assembly, particularly the plastic marine pollution one just recently last year. But of course, these are going to really start to change policies, and they have done so already in many cities. But perhaps those policies, of course, they need to dig deeper and to look at some of the key elements. And of course, one of the key elements is how we manage waste and its relationship with the informal sector. Most of the recycling that's done in the developing regions of the world is undertaken by informal sector actors. And finding ways to bring them into formal waste management policy at city level is, of course, one of the big challenges. I think my sort of final point that I wanted to make is the interconnection between the management of solid waste, drainage, climate, and other pollution. If you move into dense urban spaces, it's very difficult to undertake sort of actions in just one area of environmental infrastructure. Because the way that solid waste is disposed, the way cities are drained, the way wastewater is managed, are all critically linked together. Without good solid waste management, we risk more flooding in urban settings because drainage is impacted. And in fact, of course, drainage systems, sewage systems, and of course some rivers are the ways that much of this domestic waste is carried to the oceans. So we really need to look at the management of waste and in bringing zero waste policy in an integrated way. We can't just look at solid waste without looking at drainage, without looking at liquid waste management. So it's very important that we consider all of these together. So just my final point really is that zero waste is a win-win strategy for everyone. It's a real opportunity for cities to rethink their production and management of waste for the benefit of the environment, for the benefit of the health, and of course to reduce the huge budgets that are currently spent on managing waste. So I'd like to stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Graham, for not only reminding of the contribution of that day to the 2030 agenda, and to speak about your Waste Cities initiative and for the role of cities in tackling the waste management problem in an integrated way and challenges of urbanization. So our next speaker now is the Executive Secretary of the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions, with whom this event is co-convened. And the convention plays a key role in beating waste pollution, and the Basel Convention is explicitly mentioned in the Hungary resolution. So now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Payet. Rolf Payet, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Delphine, Excellencies, colleagues, participants, good afternoon. Sorry, I'm joining you here from another meeting that I'm attending in Croatia, so I will have to go in a few, so sorry I can't stay with you for the entire time. So this is, of course, a very, very important day for us, as you know, it really brings the focus on the issue of waste, both at the international level, and we've been seeing that this day has been celebrated now also in New York, with the missions in New York and in various places around the world. So thank you very much, Turkey, for this foresight and for this important decision to bring the issue of waste to the forefront of discussions that we are doing here and will be doing in 1.5 months at our triple COPs here in Geneva. And here I refer to the General Assembly's resolution 77161, which was adopted in December 2022, that echoes the voices of the parties of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions that have worked very hard over the last 30 and 20 years respectively to protect human health and the environment from the harmful effects posed by hazardous chemicals and wastes. I think as we mentioned in the video, we have more than 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste accumulating annually. And we know that only 55% of this is actually managed by control facilities. So we still have an unaccounted 1 billion tons of municipal solid waste, which is somewhere degrading, leaching into the environment, into our rivers, our oceans, and our coastal regions, and of course, impacting severely, not only on human health, but also on wildlife and the health of our environment. And just to note that we have over 14 million tons of plastics still entering the aquatic ecosystems, and they're echoing the efforts at the international level to negotiate an international treaty on plastic waste in an effort to reduce this growing trend. And this is not counting the hundreds of tons of electronic waste, waste containing toxic substances, and other types of waste that continuously is being deposited into the environment. The Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Waste was adopted in 1989. And over the years, it has worked in a number of areas, identifying how we can, as individual member states and also parties to the convention, address the issue of waste. And one of the strategies which looked at more how we can effectively minimize waste and also prevent waste was through the strategies adopted at Cartagena, called the Cartagena Declaration on the Prevention, Minimization, and Recovery of Hazardous Waste and Other Wastes in 2011. The Basel Convention has also taken a number of important decisions, and most recently in 2019, parties adopted the Plastic Waste Amendments, which is aimed at better addressing the issue of plastic waste. The most recently in last year, in 2022, the COPs also adopted the e-waste amendments, and this is to address the issue of electronic wastes. As we noted, a large number of these wastes, apparently about 70 million tons, is generated, and only 17.4% of those are reaching recycling facilities. So indeed, there is a lot of work for us to do in this area. Now, over the years, the Conference of the Parties of the Basel Convention has also established partnerships, such as the Mobile Phone Partnership Initiative, the Partnership of Action on Computing Equipment, the Household Waste Partnership, the Plastic Waste Partnership, and currently looking at a follow-up partnership to computer equipment, which aims at facilitating the implementation of the conventions, working both with the private sector, the local governments, countries, parties, NGOs, in trying to find solutions. As we've all learned, that there is no solution that fits all, and each situation is very different based upon cultural, economic, social issues. So really, we have to bring the solution of waste down to the local level. The Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants has also contributed to reduce waste by removing from the life cycle of products very, very toxic chemicals, which we call persistent organic pollutants, and removing them from the human production. Whilst the Stockholm Convention has been instrumental in removing some of these chemicals from our consumption and production products, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. There's still thousands of chemicals that need to go through the scientific process in terms of identifying their impacts on human and wildlife and seeing whether they need to be managed and regulated, and in many cases phased out under the Stockholm Convention. Thus, it is my expectation and hope that the annual observance of the International Zero Waste Day will contribute to raise awareness at the political level and also at the local level, and indeed at the international level, on the urgency for us to address the issue of generation of waste by indeed promoting sustainable production and consumption patterns, that is dealing with the matter upstream, but also looking how we can shift towards thinking on circularity, and in so doing, contribute to addressing the triple planetary crisis of pollution, biodiversity, and climate change. So with those few words, I would like to thank you for your attention and have, I won't say happy, but a constructive and a productive World Zero Waste Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Payet, for highlighting the place of waste prevention in the agenda of the Free Convention, and definitively the COPs of the Free Convention that will take place in Geneva at the beginning of May will be an opportunity to further advance this agenda. So in advance, many thanks to the Secretariat for the work that will be done, and we know it's a lot of pressure. We will now have a regional perspective on the BIT waste pollution agenda and how it can support the implementation of the Basel Convention. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Jinwei Li, who is professor at the School of Environment of the Tsinghua University, People's Republic of China, and who is the executive director of the Basel Convention Regional Center for Asia and the Pacific. Mr. Li, you have the floor.
Thank you, Daphne. Excellency, distinguished representative, ladies and gentlemen, good day. My name is Jinwei Li, the executive director for Basel Convention Regional Center for Asia and the Pacific. This is hosted by China, so-called as BCRC China. I'm very appreciate the opportunity on this, the UN International Day of Zero Waste, to outline progress regarding to the Chinese practice on Zero Waste and the work on International Network of Zero Waste City Initiative by BCRC China. In China, for beating waste pollution, the State Council in 2018 issued the work plan for Zero Waste City pilot program. A zero waste city refers in China to an urban development model that aims to reduce generation and promote recycling of solid waste, reduce waste sent to landfill, and minimize the environmental impact of solid waste through promoting green development and lifestyle. After 2 years period pilot, during the 14th five-year plan period, China is carrying the construction of zero waste cities in 113 cities and 8 special regions. Basel Convention Region Center for Asia Pacific has contributed to this work, has taken planning and technical support for zero waste city construction in 12 cities or regions. We take note that one of the key principles of Basel Convention is the reduction of waste generation and the promotion of the environmental sound management of hazardous waste and other waste. The objective of Basel Convention is fully consistent with Zero Waste Initiative. An international network can assist in achieving the objective of the Convention by licensing the waste cities implementing zero waste strategy. At the Zero Waste City High Level Forum, June 2020, BCRC China drafted a declaration on promoting zero waste city construction. Subsequently, BCRC China consulted the declaration with relevant cities worldwide and commenced establishment of the International Network of Zero Waste City Initiative. BCRC China has invited interested cities to join the network. Up to right now, the network has got written support from the following cities, including China 16 pilot zero waste cities, Salto, Cerro Largo, and River Province in Uruguay, Carrasco, Okhom, and Zilakhan Province in Mongolia, BCRC Iran, and BCRC Caribbean. In addition, during this 2 years period, 17 cities and 2 regions and 4 Basel Convention region centers have exchanged experience through Zero Waste City Forum organized by BCRC China. The International Network of Zero Waste Cities Initiative has been planned to comprise member cities, the scientific bodies, and the expert body committee and the subsidiary committee of industry representative. BCRC China is planning to act as a temporary secretariat of the network. The network was facilitate the following main activities with an open window to the needs of the cities. The first is to deliver report and newsletter on the progress of Zero Waste Cities construction, to organize webinar for experience exchange, and to select Zero Waste City leaders. The second is to verify and evaluate solid waste management by technology, to assist the technology transfer and to organize supply and demand matching meeting between local government and industry. Sorry. The third is to undertake research on zero waste scientific issue and to apply for funding for and implement zero waste city pilot project. And the fourth is to undertake training and awareness raising. It is hoped that through this network, cities can work together to promote the process of international zero waste city construction, reduce the generation of waste, and promote the environmental sound management of waste. You are all warm welcome to contact us to join the network and working together with us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Thank you for this perspective on the international network and the regional center for Asia. Now I will come back to the Turkey's commitment, who is at the origin of the UNGA resolution, but this time at a national level with Mr. Emre Kavlak, who is environment expert at the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change, who will present the Zero Waste Project, which has received a UNDP Turkey's SDG Action Award due to its important contribution to the SDG 12. And so, Mr. Kavlak, you have the floor.
His Excellency Ambassador, esteemed participants, can you hear me?
Very well, Mr. Kavlak, we can hear you. Please.
Hello, I'm Emre Kavlak. I'm working as an expert at the Circular Economy and Waste Management Department in DG Environmental Management. I'd like to express that I'm proud to be here with you in this event in Zero Waste Day here today. His Excellency Ambassador, distinguished participants, I believe that everyone who is working on the protection of environment and who is interested in this issue will be talking about zero waste today. As we all know, even though the Earth consists of continents and countries, impacts on the nature and pollution affects to everyone without seeing any boundaries. Since waste is an element of the concept of pollution, today I will be dealing with this context, in this context of one Earth, one family, and one future. When we talk about zero waste, we are talking about an approach to resource and waste management based on circularity and promotes sustainable production and consumption habits and encourages the efficient use of resources. Zero waste is a target defined as waste management philosophy that involves preventing the wastage, using the resources more efficiently, reviewing the reasons of waste formation, preventing or minimizing it, and collecting it at the source separately for a suitable recycling or recovering process. Understanding of zero waste serves preserving and recovering all resources instead of sending them for landfills or burying them or burning them, and treating them as they should be. In order to avoid wastefulness, advocating for the prevention, reduction, reuse, or recycling of waste, and achieve a positive socio-economic outcome, including the development of social solidarity, we needed a project for zero waste, for the implementation of zero waste. Turkey is among the countries at the forefront of the zero waste movement. In 2017, under the leadership of Her Excellency Madam Emine Erdogan, the First Lady, Turkey launched its zero waste project to highlight the importance of sound waste management and reform consumption patterns to achieve the environmental dimensions of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially in fighting with the climate crisis. What you see in the picture is the ministry headquarters, our ministry headquarters, and we have started the project here in 2017 for the first time. And we have a waste sample storage area in our campus that we store our waste before sending it for recycling purposes. We also have a mobile civic amenity center that our colleagues and people living nearby can bring their recyclable waste to here for recycling. In order to establish the zero waste management system, it's required to implement at least a double collection system, and we need to support it with civic amenity centers. And talking about zero waste in Turkey, we also have zero waste certificates given to buildings and premises and local authorities in order to establish zero waste movement, zero waste management system according to the criteria determined by the ministry. You can find the detailed information at our website about the certification process or building a zero waste implementation in these premises. We have 11 guidelines prepared by the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change in order to guide the realization of the works related to the establishment, operation and monitoring of a sustainable zero waste management system. And you can see what kind of facilities and institutions these guidelines refer to, such as homes and buildings, public institutions, tourism facilities, health institutions, and so on. I would like to briefly talk about the results we have achieved since 2017 that we have first started this project. Our recovery rate has increased up to around 27%. 90 million people have received training within the scope of the project. We also achieved an economic gain of around 62 billion Turkish liras. Nearly 120,000 buildings and 96 municipalities received certificates for zero waste management. And also the system is installed in around 164,000 buildings and campus areas. You can see on the slide that we aim to increase the recovery rates of our country, which was about 13% in 2017, and we want to improve this to around 60% by 2035 with the help of the zero waste management. Zero waste project is also related to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and you can see the relations of the project with the SDG 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14 in the picture. If we need to summarize the progress of our zero waste implementation, the zero waste project in a short time from 2017 to today, in 2018, the zero waste information system was put into use. That we launched the system as a ministry from outside to control the system. Also, regulations have been finalized in order to start the implementation of charging for plastic bags. That we started this implementation just after this year in 2019. We have started to charge for plastic bags in order to reduce the plastic waste and to reduce the amount of plastic waste. Also, the regulation on zero waste was put into force in 2019, and the purpose of this regulation is to determine the general rules, principles regarding the establishment, dissemination, development, monitoring, financing, and recording, also certification of the zero waste management system. Zero Waste Blue was also initiated in the same year, and we have included the zero waste to our 11th development plan of Turkey. In 2020, we have our guidelines prepared that I have mentioned earlier. Turkey Environment Agency was established, and Turkish environmental law was revised according to the zero waste necessities. In 2021, action plan was prepared with the joint agreement of all our ministries, and the Green Deal action plan was published. The action plan includes 81 actions under 9 main titles that will affect our country within the scope of the EU Green Deal, and a title that includes activities for raising awareness. Also, Paris Agreement was ratified by Turkey in this year. And last year, in 2022, UN Resolution 77/161 is adopted. And today is the International Zero Waste Day, and we wish to continue our work together without slowing down in the future. The main highlights of the decision can be summarized as requesting to set up an advisory board to promote local and national zero waste initiatives, recommending the continuation of the discussion on zero waste initiatives, encouraging member states, organizations of the United Nations system and other international and regional organizations, and also declaring March 30th as International Zero Waste Day. Before I end my words, I would like to mention that our zero waste project has been deemed worthy of valuable awards by many different international organizations, especially the United Nations. You can see some of these awards in the pictures. I wish that Zero Waste Day will contribute to change our consumption habits and lifestyles, also extend our lifetime and materials and extend the lifetime of the materials as long as possible, and to produce less waste and protect our resources. I would like to end my words with one of the slogans of the Technical Assistance Project for the evaluation of Turkey's potential for transition to a circular economy, which was started in 2022 and which is closely related to our zero waste efforts. And this project is carried out with the EU IPA funds. A livable world with circular economy and renewable. For your further comments and questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We have shared our email in the picture. And also thank you for your kind attention. I have tried to present as fast as possible, but I have a limited time. And thank you again for your interest.
Thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Kavlak. Thank you for bringing the voice of the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization of Turkey to show us its ambition to reach the SDG 12, but not only, and the impressive results also already achieved by your countries and the numerous awards you received. So congratulations. The list speaker of this session is someone who is at the forefront dealing with our daily waste, Mr. John Javier Cuellar, who is the chairman of the Kenya National Waste Pickers Welfare Association, which will present its activities to us. So, Mr. Cuellar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Thank you. So, Excellencies, the entire UN fraternity and all members attending this call, I want to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation for considering also the context and the realities of waste pickers that are, I believe, are also like a very important link in this value chain to also come and be part of this call. Thank you very much. So, thank you. I'll start by what I'm showing on the screen there, the formation of my national association, where I represent as the chairman. So, like right now as waste pickers, because of the job we do and because of the inequalities that we normally face, we've been rising up and trying to unite. And this has been like a movement that is not only happening in Kenya. This is something that is happening across the globe. Our unity is mostly based on changing some of the inequalities that we face. And from what you can see from your screen is that after multiple joint discussion from Kenya, because Kenya is made of like different counties, municipalities. So we had to like bring on board all like waste pickers from each and every corner from different cities of Kenya to bring the aspect of that representation, because like our challenges and our realities are the same. We came to like an agreement to form and to create like the national umbrella where the welfare and the rights of waste pickers within our country would be represented. So one of the achievements that so far I would say that we have managed to achieve is to organize and unite waste pickers. And this organizing and uniting is to the tune of 26,000 waste pickers, Nairobi being one of the biggest membership of the National Association, because in Nairobi alone, we have more than 15,000 waste pickers. Those that collect from the households, from the streets, from the companies, and also the majority being those that live in and within the dump site where most of the waste go to. So this is how we've been organizing. The second achievement is that we've been also trying to engage more with the county governments because of the nature of governance in Kenya that is devolved. So we have that national government and the county governments. We've been very much trying to engage with the county governments because this like literally forms one of our biggest challenges, that the local authorities, and not only the local but also the national authorities, have been making a lot of policies and passing and trying to enforce policies that directly affect our livelihoods without like literally having our voices also considered on the table. So this is actually one of the things that forms the basis of the fact that we came together to unite. These engagements have been from the pictures that you are seeing are West Speaker leaders. On the right is West Speaker leaders meeting on a very local level to discuss on ways that we are going to solve or to push for the solving of our personal issues, the problems of the people that we represent. And on the left is a meeting that we organize to also engage with these county local leaders that directly like sit on tables that make policies that affect the job that we do every day. So another achievement that I would say that we've done is that because of the situations that we are normally going through in our places of work, as you can see, that is one of the biggest dam site in Kenya. That is Dandora dam site, and that situation alone will quickly tell you like the kind of life that we're living. And one of our biggest challenges, so I'll go through our achievements and also like bring on board some of the challenges that we face. Of course, there are so many. I won't be able to kind of point all of them within this short time, but I'll also be pulling on board some of the challenges that we're facing. So from this picture, you can quickly see that the health issue that we face is something that is so loud, and it's something that like no local or national or global authority can assume or can like pretend not to see. In this dam site, we have like more than 8,000 members living in this dam site with their families. So one of the biggest problems that we are facing right now is kind of tied to health. Most of our members, because we are not like in a very good financial position to also kind of seek better medical attention. So we are not very much able to say that most of these health symptoms are cancer, but we know for sure. I personally know for sure that there's some cancerous symptoms that we see. This is because of like what we interact with every day in the job that we do. We interact with, of course, toxic plastics. That forms like a very big part of our environment and our workstation. As you can see there, most of the plastic that is there is single-use plastic. That like totally has no value to waste pickers. All the plastic that come to the dump site that are recyclable and has some little value, waste pickers will always like take them and have them in a right place, have them taken to a recycling plant where they can get some little value out of it. So I would say that from tagging this achievement of the National Association to the challenges that we're facing, we started like a Facebook fund drive that got us to manage to at least get 400 pairs of PPEs, that is gumboots and gloves, just to try to also reduce some of the health cases that we are having. We tried to also give them to the most vulnerable, those that already have like symptoms of diseases. These diseases are mostly like being contracted because we handle like this waste without the PPEs. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. Those are some of the pictures of the situation that we go through in the dump site, and this is how the fund drive that we had, because also it was not that much. We could not afford to like give like a very good number of my colleagues, but then again, at least from what we got, we equipped and we kind of put some of the members in a better position. This is something that we did across different counties in the country. Those are just some of the pictures that we have. Another achievement that we've also managed to do is to conduct regular cleanups. This is something that we started way long ago. I personally started working and living in the dump when I was 13 years old, and now it's been 18 years since I started doing this job. And I would say that over all of this time, we've been doing a lot of cleanups. We've been like reclaiming a lot of waste, both household and plastic waste, and trying to get some value out of it. So conducting regular cleanups, and these cleanups are not cleanups that are paid in any way. These are things that we normally just get out because we are environmentalists. This is our job, and this is what we've been doing for the longest time. No one pays us to do cleanup, but we do it. So this aspect also brings the fact that waste pickers have that historic debt that I would say our authorities and our communities owe us, as much as one of the challenges that we also face is a lot of social stigma. We face a lot of harassment from the authorities, from the police, and from the local and the national authorities. This is also because of the kind of life we live. We are generally, because of the job we do, we are always dirty. There's no way that in such an environment you're going to be clean. There's no way. And waste pickers are also not privileged enough to access education from my context, because like going to school is also very expensive here. And most of us don't really get a chance to attend and have that basic education to also be in a better place to engage with the authorities. Very few of us like are privileged to attend school, and before we are privileged, it means that we have to sacrifice a lot before we can like attain basic education. So as you can see, that one of the things that we've been doing in engagement with both the local and the national government, we've been conducting like marches in the Waste Pickers Day, like we did in the 1st of March of last year and also of this year. We also did a press statement where we called all the press, mainstream press bodies, and all the press that we could access. We sent them letters, and we also invited them to come and also see, be part of our event, because this is a very important day for us. A day that I would say that for the first time we were informing other waste pickers that this is a day that some of our colleagues from somewhere like encountered very bad inequalities that we still face up to date, though in a different ways, in very many different ways. But we are already in a way, we are already like progressing on ways to change the situations that we live in. So on the 1st of March, we've been having, I would say that for the first time, we've been having press releases. We've been having marches around the city to try to also tell the policymakers that we are we do a very integral job to our cities and our environments, as much as the job we do is being recognized, but not the people who are doing it. We've also been actively engaging and being part of the networking and lobbying work that has been happening in the UNEA. That is in last year that where a resolution to end plastic pollution was passed in Nairobi. We were part of it because we are also organizing, Waste Speakers are also organizing in an international alliance of Waste Speakers, where Waste Speakers across the globe are coming together through the support of other organizations to properly organize and like actively and effectively engage with policy makers on global platforms. So those are some of the photos of Waste Speaker leaders that have been actively engaging in this process, both the UNEA and the ANC. And I would say that such platforms has also like exposed and given us opportunity to also directly engage with our leaders. Like for example, the picture on the left, that was my former CS. These were people that you cannot like, as a Waste Speaker, I could not in any day like access and talk directly to them. They do not like literally understand our realities. So when policies are being made without the voices of the people that these policies are going to affect, then there's a problem. So this, I would say that being part of like this call and being part of these global policy making processes is something that Waste Speakers don't take lightly, because we are literally being called to be on the table. And these are tables that directly affect not just our lives, but also the lives of our families and our future generations. So we also have our visions. I will just quickly go through this. This is my last slide, I guess.
Thank you. John, excuse me, if you can be quick on this last slide, because we arrive at the end of your intervention.
Okay, thank you.
You 30 seconds.
Okay. So Waste Speakers in Kenya are at the heart. I would say that generally Waste Speakers, right now, waste is generally a global war. And I would like to mention that Waste Speakers are at the forefront. We've been at the forefront at this global war because we have that historic knowledge and historic depth of managing this waste. And I like that the video that played in the first bit, where the point that mentioned that there's like experts in managing this waste. And I would say that Waste Speakers are the very experts of waste, because some of us have managed it for the past 30 years. Some of us have managed it for the past 50 years. And that is like time enough for good expertise in waste. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for your commitment both at national and international level. It's impressive to see how you and Kenya are involved through this national strategy and through this international alliance of Waste Speakers. So congratulations, and thank you again for your availability in this event. So we are now moving to the stakeholders' perspectives on advancing zero waste action section of this celebration. So, or the second part of our event. And we will start with the women and youth perspective. We have the pleasure to have with us Mrs. Varefta Merst. Varefta is a youth negotiator and a member of UNEP major group of children and youth. She follows, for example, the work of the Open-Ended Working Group to establish a global science policy panel on chemicals, waste, and pollution prevention. Varefta, you have the floor.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Excellencies, for giving me this opportunity. So I would like to share my story first here. Being a youth, where was I? I started my journey of waste in shipbreaking industry. When I saw women, especially pregnant women, working there in the shipbreaking industry and dealing with different kind of waste, asbestos, harmful waste like asbestos and many other. So as a woman, I have always seen that whenever we talk about consumption, production, awareness, it always, or any sort of practices or any sort of patterns, it comes to my mind that two major groups can always take the lead, that is women, besides youth and children. Children and youth has been coming right now, because being a part of children and youth of women, the major group, what I have seen is right now the waste or the climatic disasters or whatever we are facing is just double or 3 times more than what our past generation has faced. So when being a woman, it's always a questionable that, or being a mother, that what a woman is actually giving the next generation, what they are putting up. And in that, we have always seen that women are always part of this household chores, especially in developing countries, managing the households, and knowingly or unknowingly, they're always segregating the waste, starting from the industries like garments in Bangladesh, industries, or at household level. And in these three different vibrant sectors, they know about it, but without any capacity building, without any sort of proper assistance, and most importantly, without any safeguard. They're working in this waste sector field. And also, at the same time, the youth waste pickers, which in our language we call them tokai, in our Bengali language, they are maybe most probably will be at the age from 12 to 20 or 25. And within that age, they are already collecting the waste and they are part of it. Unknowingly, knowing like what to segregate, where to throw, how to throw, and what's happening, what's the end life of it. So women, youth, and children are always involved in waste, in segregation, but they're not given proper training, especially in the developing countries, or proper, in one way, the advancement of their work. And they're also not given proper respect for that. For example, when at the local level, governments, when we try to reach out to them, especially the women, we are not appreciated the work we are doing, the segregation that we are doing. And from 100% in our country, if you look into the ratio, from 100%, 90% of women are actually involved in this waste segregation or waste management sector. And they actually bring, unknowingly, they actually bring a part of circular economy in it. They bring recycling in it. Whereas still now in our country, we do not have any segregation, implementation of segregation. We wouldn't see any beans, 3 cycled beans, or 3 different beans, 3 colored beans in schools or at local level or at many of the institutions still now. But women are part of it, taking care of it in the landfill. If you look into the landfills in Dhaka, women are working on it barehanded and only with bare minimum wage of $2 per day. And they're doing it regularly. And most of the time, men are not part of it. Women are part of it. And if we talk about youth, yes, the tokai that I have said, the informal waste pickers, they are part of it. And they are also seeing it as a money-making system or a platform. So my perspective is to look into, I would like to take this platform to have more advancement in strategies to involve women, to build their capacity, to train them, to have maybe major groups. And especially, I know that according to the countries, there are like national levels, local levels, there are lots of issues and cultural differences. But in general, if we can inform them in which area they are working, maybe in shipwrecking industry or in the plastic industry or in the food waste industry, they would know how to segregate, where to segregate, because right now we are mixing it all up and they are directly or indirectly contaminated and they are having lots of diseases, disease outbreak. That's from our experience, and that's what we are seeing in the landfills. And at the time of any natural disaster, this landfill become a curse for them. This landfill becomes prone to far more toxic and dangerous diseases for them. And they, with their minimal age, they are not given any treatment. So it's not only about women and children having a capacity building and training, but also how they should be treated in this kind of sectors and what should be done. And at the time of policies, we only think about how the policies needs to be implemented. How the policies are actually addressed or how it's taken. But we forget the gap between the knowledge and the bottom up and top down approach. Most of the time, what happens is what's there in the policies, it does not reach to the local level. It does not reach to those women, to those youth. And we are trying to be that voice. We are trying to reach out to them. I would like to give one example here. We have done one of the major work in Bhutan, what we are trying to do in Bangladesh and Nepal as well. We are trying to upcycle plastic waste by making construction materials, and we are involving youth as well as women in it. These kind of projects, we need a lot of promotion and assistance and capacity building, training as well. So here, what we did, we have addressed 5 different communities, those who are prone to plastic pollution. Regularly, those who are addressing plastic as an issue. And we are training those women how to segregate, what to do. And as well as we are going to the local institutes, local schools to teach children and youth about what to do so that it's a both-way message for them. And what's happening at the policy level, we are trying to reach out to the university students. So this is how we are reaching out right now. And we want more support for the voluntary work that women and children are doing right now. Because waste management sector, the women, those who are working there directly, they see it as a money-making sector. They're with only basic $2 per day minimal wage, they are working. So, and youth, they get far, far, far lesser than that. So we want to have them into a setup, a strategic setup, a procedure, so that they can be into a proper systematic approach, so that for the zero waste solution, we can provide a proper solution. And also give them a proper knowledge on what waste they are working on and how to manage that, so that it doesn't end up in the different sectors of the ecosystem. So I would like to end up here by saying that we need to build capacity for women, children, and youth to have a successful or to beat the waste pollution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Varefta. That was very clear, and we are glad that women and young people are taking action for zero waste in different sectors and at different levels. And we have taken note of the importance to do more in supporting and involving women and youth, and in particular in terms of capacity building, awareness, training, etc. So thank you very much again. And it's not only women and young people who are taking action on zero waste, business is too. And to give a private sector perspective, we are going to welcome Mrs. Sarah Blomqvist, who is Director of Public Affairs at Tomra Systems, and who is going to tell us how the company is involved in waste management. Tomra is a company member of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Mrs. Blomqvist, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And I'll just wait for control of the slides, please. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how I advance the slides. Or if someone else even wants to advance, that's fine too. I accepted control, but I don't see any controls of how to advance them.
You may click on the screen and then you will have to control it. There you go.
Oop, oop. Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Blomqvist. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Public Affairs North America, and I'm based in New York. It's an honor to be here today with everyone, and thank you for inviting us to participate. So it's with great pleasure that I have this opportunity to introduce what we at Tomra call the Holistic Resource System. This system combines global best waste management practices in terms of tackling plastic pollution, promoting the circular economy, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And if we all collaborated for accelerating implementation of these proven systems, we can make a massive contribution to sustainability on this planet. But first, let me give you just a brief introduction of TOMRA. Let's see. Okay. We're a global technology leader. We focus on sensor-based solutions for optimal resource productivity in the food, mining, and recycling industries. And at TOMRA, our vision is to lead the resource revolution. And it's our belief that businesses have the power and responsibility to help sustainably manage our planet's precious resources. So around the world, this is a snapshot of our presence. We're a global leader in recycling technology. We have 50 years experience in the recycling value chain with over 100,000 systems installed across more than 100 countries. You can see here there's the strongest concentration is in Europe, and that's largely driven by the more progressive waste policy that we see there, such as the single-use plastics directive. Sorry, the advancing is a little weird. Okay, so here's a snapshot just to show you what this means in reality. Here's a snapshot of two of our key solutions for collecting and sorting materials. On the left, you see a reverse vending machine that's used in regions that have a deposit on beverage containers, which is then returned to the consumer when they bring back that container. On the right, that orange box is an optical sorting solution. It's commonly used in material recovery facilities known as MRFs, where your household recycling goes to be sorted and recycled. In combination, these solutions, they reduce litter, and they also reduce the demand for virgin resources. So let's get into what the holistic resource system is. Okay, there we go. So we asked ourselves, if we combine the proven best practices in waste management, what would a holistic system look like? And what could we achieve if a system like this was implemented globally? So the TOMRA Holistic Resource System optimizes the combination of key waste management practices for collection, sorting, and recycling to transition towards closing the loop, preventing litter, and contributing to a carbon neutral world. A quick snapshot here to show, what this problem is for people who aren't familiar. Today, only about 14% of plastic packaging is collected for recycling globally, and most of this is recycled into lower quality products. And only 2% is recycled in a closed loop. So I know we're pressed for time. I'm going to skip through some of this. It's a little short. Okay, so some of the key findings from this report, and I do direct you to the full white paper and report that we did with Eunomia on the holistic resource system. The key takeaway here is that we found that nearly 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent per year compared to current waste disposal methods could be saved if we put these systems into place. That's the equivalent of taking more than 600 million passenger cars off the road annually. And the way this is done is by significantly increasing collection, all the material we bring in, sorting, recycling it, and then improving resource management practices globally. So let's have a look at what the system looks like. So the holistic resource system consists of three main components: a deposit return system, separate collection of certain materials, and then mixed waste sorting prior to disposal at the landfill. If implemented together, this system has the power to increase recycling rates and accelerate the transition to a circular economy. Let's take a quick look at these three systems. The first one, a deposit return system. Depending where you live, you might be familiar with this. It's very common in Europe, a little bit in the US and in Canada and other regions around the world. The way it works is that we put a small but meaningful deposit on the sale of each beverage, and then that's paid back to consumers when they bring that container back. The deposit system is typically established through legislation, and the key mark of the system is that it achieves the highest rates for bringing those containers back, around 90% in the high-performing systems, which greatly outperforms what we see in the curbside systems. So it's a key enabler of circularity for beverage containers. The second component, separate collection of specific materials. The best performing municipalities, they have source separation of specific waste streams. So this are the 5 mentioned here. It's organic waste, paper, textiles, e-waste, and glass. So source separation of these materials specifically helps to increase recycling rates, drive circularity, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a key component. And what's unique about this second component of source separation is that it's not necessarily required to have separate collection of plastics. And that's kind of the key point that sticks out and depends really on the location that you're in. What's clear though is that relying just on source separation for recovery of plastic is not enough for a high performing system. And for example, to meet recycling targets for plastic packaging. But by adding the third and last element of this system called mixed waste sorting, we can reach the full potential of plastic recovery. Oh, sorry, I did not advance the slide. So last element here, mixed waste sorting. It's a final stage solution for recovering recyclable materials such as plastics, metals, and paper before residual waste is incinerated or sent to the landfill. It serves as a recovery backstop for recyclable materials that are now not captured in the other 2 aspects, the deposit return system or separate collection, and it's essential for mitigating climate impacts. For example, in Norway, a 2019 study from Deloitte found that municipalities that sort plastic out from residual waste at a mixed waste sorting plant had 2 to 5 times higher recycling rates than municipalities that did not. So for example, let's see what this looks like in practice. This is in Norway, in Ivar, Norway. We see one of the 2 state-of-the-art mixed waste sorting plants that they have in Norway. They're fully automatic. They recover up to 90% of the targeted plastic with a very high purity rate of around 95%. So this region is a great example of a holistic resource system. They have a deposit return system. They do source separation of the recommended fractions, but not of the plastic packaging. They get the highest rates by putting it with the residual waste from the household and sorting it at these plants. And one final example I wanted to show you of what kind of collaboration and what solutions look like in practice. And again, a reminder that these are solutions that exist now. There's other solutions being developed as packaging evolves, but all of these solutions I'm talking about today are in practice and exist now. This is an industrial scale demonstration plant that we opened in Germany in 2021, and it's a joint venture with Borealis. The goal of this partnership was to prove out that advanced mechanical recycling with enhanced steps to traditional recycling makes it possible to create virgin-like recycled plastic pellets, both from source separated streams, but also from those mixed waste resource streams I was talking about. There's a huge demand for recycled content, both from brand goals and from legislation. And by combining advanced mechanical recycling like this with mixed waste sorting, it unlocks that recovery and potential to produce high quality feedstocks. And so policy, the key point, an additional key point at least that I'd like to end, I'm sorry, I have another slide, but one of the last key points I'd definitely like people to walk away with is about the importance of policy in all this. Well-designed policy to achieve the desired environmental outcomes that we want. So the implementation of this HRS system, it addresses plastic pollution, promotes a circular economy, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions, but it doesn't happen without a strong policy framework. And the most effective policy approach we see from around the world is extended producer responsibility, or EPR. It's a transformative solution. It ensures producers are legally responsible for the environmental and social aspects of the products that they're making, and it has them pay for the recovery of that material. Well-designed EPR, it includes targets for recycling and recycled content, and that's how we drive circularity. Oh, I can send these slides up too. So let me wrap up now. So in summary, the holistic resource system maximizes recovery of all materials through implementation of those 3 aspects: deposit return systems, separate source collection, and mixed waste sorting prior to landfill or incineration. And to accomplish this, a strong policy framework based on the principle of EPR is key. And thank you all for your attention. I just wanted to leave with one last message, which I think is relevant to the audience today, to highlight the importance of the work being done for the UN Treaty on Plastic Pollution. Tomer is an active member of the Business Coalition for a Global Plastic Treaty, which is facilitated by Ellen MacArthur and the WWF. We're going to continue to participate in these in the INC meetings, and with the next one being in Paris in May. We call for the UN Treaty on Plastic Pollution to enforce mandatory policies to generate fair, long-term economic drivers to end plastic pollution and keep plastic in the economy at its highest value for as long as possible. Thank you very much for your attention, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Blomqvist, for sharing this presentation of Tomer activities and the role that you have in developing some interesting innovation to tackle waste management. So now I would like to give the floor to our civil society representative. Civil society movement have played an important action in supporting member states and other stakeholders moving forward this agenda. We are delighted to welcome on this panel the Zero Waste Movement, Mrs. Dorinda Phillips, the Geneva manager of Zero Waste Switzerland, has joined us. It is quite impressive to see the number of activities proposed locally, and we look forward to hear more on how we can get involved. Mrs. Phillips, you have the floor.
Thank you very much indeed. Just see if I have control of the slides. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to be with you today. Just waiting for the slides to appear. Okay, wonderful. So basically, the way we look at the zero waste movement is about creating enabling conditions and showing people the concrete actions they can put in place to reduce waste and clearly preserve natural resources, biodiversity, reduce carbon emissions. So obviously, we've heard a lot today. We produce a huge amount of waste. There's a lot that we need to reduce, but very clearly, we always say that the waste is just the visible tip of the iceberg. If we can reduce the waste, we reduce the natural resources we're using, we reduce the carbon emissions that are being produced. And these numbers you see are for Switzerland, but obviously you have the numbers for your own countries. So the way we look at the zero waste approach is trying to look here in Switzerland, is to see how we can reduce waste at the source. So even starting before recycling, in Switzerland, we have a recycling rate of around 50%. So we're looking to see how we can even avoid it in the first place. We typically talk about things that we can do for the individuals, but also for the companies, the manufacturers. So starting off with refusing things you know you don't need, advertising in the letterbox, or companies to design the product differently from the beginning so it doesn't create any waste. Individuals can reduce the amount of things we're buying, clothes, gadgets, etc. And obviously companies can reduce unnecessary packaging. And basically, if we can reuse, if consumers get back into the habit of using cloth bags, own containers, they can use these for the next 20 years. So the idea is literally to reuse, repair, share, and clearly compost and recycle afterwards play an important part. What we typically see is that people start when they're starting to change their habits with reducing their packaging waste, but they go on to reduce food waste, energy waste, transport emissions. So it's really about reducing the environmental footprint. Okay, so there will be zero waste associations, I'm sure, in many of your countries. Here in Switzerland, typically we're providing concrete solutions on the ground. So what we do is we do events, workshops, conferences, coaching programs, guides. We do projects, but I'm going to talk to you about two in a minute, the Zero Waste Cities and the School Project. And all of the things we do are for municipalities, for companies, for schools, shops, restaurants, etc. Here in Europe, we also have Zero Waste Europe, who is an organization that connects 35 different national and international NGOs with a huge focus on influencing EU policy from product design redesign through to waste disposal. The Zero Waste Cities program, and many cities across Europe have joined that, and the Mission Zero Academy, which certifies the cities. They're also a member of a number of different alliances, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Break Free from Plastic Pollution, Rethink Plastic. Okay, so I'm going to share with you now 2 concrete projects that we've been working on here in Geneva. The first one, the Zero Waste City, Carouge. Carouge is a town in the canton of Geneva with 23,000 inhabitants. As I said, we already have 50% recycling rates in place, compost systems in place. And so the goal was to see how we could help people change habits and really look at how to avoid waste in the first place. So we've been working with Carouge for about 4 years now, started in 2018, and we put a program in place with 4 pillars. The first around individuals, households, conferences, workshops, family coaching programs to reduce waste. We involved all of the key stakeholders in the city, the schools, the companies, the shops, public administration. And then we looked to see how we could multiply or amplify the impact through all the big festivals in the city, 1 core project a year, so compost, takeaway lunches. This year it's on food waste, and underlying all of that communication, digital campaigns, etc. So to show you a few results, we look at results on 4 levels. The first level is participation. And what we saw is through those 4 years, an excellent participation. Over 6,500 people came to the activities. 6 of the schools joined the Zero Waste school program. Virtually all of the shops put up the stickers, "We accept your own containers," 75,000 visitors, etc. to the website. The second level we look at is the waste reduction among the early adopters. These are about 15 to 20% of the population who are going to be the first to change. And what we saw after the workshops is that individuals were reducing anywhere between 30 to 90% of their incinerated waste. The first family coaching program we did, we accompanied 24 families over a period of 6 months and to show them how to reduce waste, and they reduced their waste on average by 63% on average, which is huge. The second group of 20 families reduced by 43% during the COVID, which was pretty impressive as well. All of the big festivals and school events across the city have reduced between 50 and 90% with help and guidance. And the public administrations reduced a lot, but they also put a big focus on paper, so they've reduced about 2 tons of paper a year. The third level we look at is the official waste statistics across the whole town. And so what we've seen is that a reduction of waste of about 8.5%, that's just the incinerated waste, about 12 kilograms a person, which is huge. It's a lot higher than the average that we're seeing. Companies have reduced their waste by about 15%. And that represents savings of about 80,000 a year, Swiss francs, for just an incineration for Carouge. Lots of other, the fourth area is lots of other areas where people reduce the impact. And so we did studies to show that people tend to buy more locally, they buy from local producers, they reduce their meat consumption, etc. Okay, second project, very briefly, My Zero Waste School project. So these are for primary schools, and typically what we're doing is we are accompanying primary schools over a 9 to 12 month period. And we're secondly giving teachers a toolkit so that they can put the activities in place themselves. The objective is to really teach pupils zero waste habits for life, engage the whole school in reducing waste and environmental footprint, and to reach the families. So typically we do a presentation, we do a half-day training for all the teachers so they can put 45 activities in place in their classrooms during the year. We do 4 coaching sessions of the green team throughout the year so they can put 3 to 4 activities in place for the whole school. And then we do an evaluation at the end. The idea is that the messages are repeated multiple times, surrounded by a whole community reducing, and we get to real behavior change. The toolkit we give has 20 ready to go activities for the teachers, 4 fact sheets to give them the background, and material as in games, photos, communication material, etc. Results are very positive. Feedback from the teachers, the schools, the families, they love it. And every time the schools do an event or they actually do a challenge, they reduce their waste by about 50%. So basically, just to say that when it's absolutely possible to reduce waste if we show people how to do it. to avoid waste in the first place. If you want any more information on any of this, you can Zero Waste Switzerland or Zero Waste Europe. I'll just leave you with the thought that the best waste is the waste that is actually never produced in the first place.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Phillips, for presenting all these tools and activities that you provide to raise awareness and encouraging long-lasting behavioral change. So thank you very much. And last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Alida Nazik, who is a human rights officer supporting the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights. She will talk about the relevance of the Zero Waste movement to this mandate and why it is important to integrate human rights perspective in the achievement of zero waste. Mrs. Nazik, you have the floor.
Many thanks to the organizers of this important event. My name is Halida Nasic, and I work at the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, supporting the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights. Let me start by recalling the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and his report, Our Common Agenda, stating that our climate, our environment, and our planet are critical global commons that must be protected for all people now and in the future. So how can then human rights contribute towards advising zero waste efforts? Significantly, international human rights law and standards outline obligation for states and rights for individuals and groups. UN human rights mechanisms at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights supports treaty bodies, universal periodic review, and special procedures, the mechanisms that have for decades applied international human rights law to a range of environmental issues. Environmental harm interferes with the full enjoyment of a wide spectrum of human rights, including the right to life, the right to health, clean water and sanitation, among others. These standards provide clear obligation of states to respect, protect, and to fulfill human rights on issues linked to the environment. Most recently, the UN Human Rights Council and the General Assembly have recognized that everyone, everywhere, has the right to clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. The special procedures that we are supporting consist of 59 thematic independent experts, including the Special Rapporteurs on Toxic and Human Rights. They are appointed by the Human Rights Council to engage in dialogue with states and issue recommendations on human rights issues relevant to their mandate. As to the Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, this mandate was created in 1995 to examine the human rights implications of toxics and otherwise hazardous substances. The mandate expanded in 2011 beyond the issue of waste, taking a life cycle approach to issues presented by hazardous substances. As a result, the scope of the mandate includes extractive industries, labor conditions in manufacturing and agricultural sectors, consumer products, environmental emissions of hazardous substances from all sources, military activities, war and conflict, and disposal of waste. In 2020, the Human Rights Council requested the Special Rapporteur to continue providing up-to-date information on adverse consequences for human rights of managing and disposing hazardous substances and waste in unlawful manner. The current mandate holder, the Special Rapporteur on Toxic Waste, Marcos Orellana, was appointed in 2020. Dr. Marcos Orellana is an expert in international law and law on human rights and environment. The working methods of the Special Rapporteur on Toxic Waste include country visits, thematic reports, and communication or letters to the governments on specific issues relevant to the mandate. As to the country visits, since 2020, the Special Rapporteur visited Ghana, Italy, Mauritius, Paraguay, and also the International Maritime Organization. This year, the Special Rapporteur's visit to Australia has been confirmed. In terms of the Special Rapporteur's thematic reports, these have included the impact of toxic substances on human rights of indigenous people, mercury, small-scale gold mining, and human rights, the stages of the plastic cycle and their impact on human rights, the right to science in the context of toxic substances. This year's thematic reports focuses on toxic impacts of some climate change solutions, as well as on ships generated waste. In regard to the waste, throughout the work, the Special Rapporteur has assessed implementation and gaps in the legislation for the sound management of chemicals and waste, including the existence of national policies to manage the entire cycle of chemicals and waste to prevent exposure to hazardous substances. The Special Rapporteur addresses and welcomes progress and good practices in countries in this regard, including efforts on the application of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. The Special Rapporteur has addressed issues including waste and hazardous waste, ranging from electronic, plastic, textile, organic waste, accumulate and contaminated sites posing serious human rights concern. He found that individuals and communities around the world continue to suffer from adverse health effects, ranging from miscarriage, birth defects, heart and lung impairments, cancers, among others, that are linked to toxics and hazardous waste. The Special Rapporteur observes that in general, children, indigenous people, low-income communities, and other marginalized groups are disproportionately affected. So what are the obligations of states and responsibilities of businesses to address toxic waste? In his report on states' duty to prevent exposure, the Special Rapporteur stated that no state will meet the obligations to protect, respect, and fulfill human rights without taking greater measures to prevent exposure from hazardous waste and substances. People are unknowingly exposed to multitude of hazardous substances that could be prevented. Personal autonomy over what enters our bodies has steadily eroded over decades of industrialization and chemical intensification, to such an extent that few people have information about their actual exposure, let alone the power to prevent it. Businesses have a responsibility too to respect the human rights that are implicated by their activities, supply chain, products, and policies. The toxic footprint of businesses across numerous sectors in resulting in human rights abuses, particularly for vulnerable groups. Fundamental to this responsibility is human rights due diligence in the area of toxic chemicals, pollution, and waste. To conclude, the important objectives of a zero waste approach fundamentally promotes also zero waste, hazardous waste, and contributes to the implementation of the SDGs and states' human rights obligations. The Special Rapporteur appreciates and continues collaboration and engagement and stands ready to engage in dialogue with states and all stakeholders to advance awareness, celebrate achievements, point out areas for improvements, and is available to provide continuous technical support to address those challenges. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to discussion.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nasic, for sharing this perspective with us and highlighting the danger of toxic and waste for human rights. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I propose now to give the floor to Graham Alabaster from UN Habitat, the co-convener of this event, in order to close the event and give us maybe a sketchword for the day. But just maybe before, I would like to thank all the panelists and inform you that all the slides, the presentation, the summary of the event will be available on the Geneva Environment website. So you will have access to all these materials. Thank you very much, Graham. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Well, yes, also from my side, thank you to everyone today for this marvelous discussion and talk. I think, I think it must remind us that, really waste can never be far from our thoughts. We already have a huge legacy of many decades of poor solid waste management trapped in landfills around the world, which is polluting the environment, which is having negative health impacts. So, this idea of zero waste for me, it's not a fad or a fashion. It's not something that's going to go away. It's something that needs to be mainstreamed and part of all of our policies as we move forward. And we've heard from lots of presenters about how there's a need to work at different levels. We need national policies in place. But we also realise that the drivers for some of these initiatives will always come from the local level, from the level of cities, from the level of communities and special interest groups. So this really is, all in all, a win-win situation. And for me, I'm always reminded of this phrase. It's a very old-fashioned phrase that has been around for a long time, but I think it's still as relevant today as it always was. And that's the phrase, waste not, want not, which really, for me, sums up the idea of not producing waste in the first place, as we heard from Dorinda Phillips, about, really our first line of defence should be to reduce the production of waste in the first place. And at least if we can't do that, we should think about how we sustainably reuse and give an extended life to the sources of waste, not really calling them waste, but calling them new resources that we move forward. So it's a very exciting area. We're committed as UN Habitat with UNEP and all of the other partners here to continue this work. We very much hope that there will be a legally binding agreement on plastic waste, which will drive us. We, of course, mustn't forget the hazardous waste aspect, of course, because this is an even more insidious and dangerous part of waste management, which many people don't see and it's below the radar. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much for inviting us, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So I will hand over to Diana.
Just to thank everybody, all those who remained with us, until the end of this event, before we run out of time. So thank you to the panelists for the discussion, and this is just the first of many other celebrations where we will highlight some of the challenges that were mentioned by the various panelists today, and see how things will hopefully be evolving very positively in the coming years, thanks to the action of many of the people that we have heard today, and many others who around the world are invested in trying to move for a society where we will produce much less waste and hopefully one day maybe zero waste. Let's see. So thank you all.